Okay, hello everyone. Let's do Caesar passage 4, the delegation of the Helvetii. As always, take a look at the translation, pause it, go through it yourselves, and then we'll go through it together afterwards. With this being the first sentence, ubi per exploratores Caesar cetior factus est, tres jam partes copiarum Helvetiorum, id flumen traduxisse, quartam fere partem citra flumen ararem reliquam esse. So this first bit, ubi per exploratores. Let's find, as always, our subject, our verb, our object. So, our subject has to be the Caesar. It has to be the nominative Caesar. When Caesar, certior factus est, when Caesar was informed. As soon as I see this was informed, I'm thinking to myself there will probably be an accusative and there will probably be an infinitive. So, it is going to be an indirect statement. When Caesar was informed through his spies that 3 parts of the Helvetii troops had crossed the river. Jam, now, when Caesar had been informed, accusative, tres partes, that 3 parts of the Copiarum Helvetiorum, of the Helvetii troops, had now crossed id flumen, that river, traduxisse, the perfect infinitive, when he had been informed that 3 parts of the Helvetii troops had crossed the river, and that a quartam partem, and that the 4th part, fere here means approximately, so this is really up to you for how you want to translate it, but maybe mostly, that most of the 4th part, reliquam, had been, again, part of the accusative infinitive that you have over there for the reliquam esse. You've got there the that it had been, that most of the 4th part had been left, kitra, relatively rare word there. Most of the 4th part had been left behind on this side of the river Saun. De tertia vigilia cum legionibus tribus et castris profectus, ad eam partem pervenit, quae nondum flumen transierat. Having profectus, de tertia vigilia, on the 3rd watch, profectus, having set out, cum legionibus tribus, with 3 legions, e castris, from the camp. Remember I told you before that castra comes from castella, where we get, our word castle comes from castella, which comes from castra, and a castella is a little castle, literally here meaning a little camp rather. A castella is a little camp. That's where we get our English word castle from. Anyway, profectus, perfect active participle there. Profectus, having set out, de tertia vigilia, having set out with tribus, with 3 legions, cum legionibus tribus, with 3 legions, de tertia vigilia, on the 3rd watch, e castris, from the camp, he pervenit, he came to eam partem, that part, quae, which, relative pronoun here, came to that part. Remember that the relative pronoun, I know that we're talking really year 10 grammar here, but remember that the relative pronoun goes in the same number and the same gender, but it goes in the case that is required in its particular clause. So it doesn't agree with the eam partem here, it goes in the nominative. He came, ad eam partem, to that part, quae, which had nondum, not yet, transierat flumen, which had not yet crossed the river. Eos impeditos et inopinantes aggressus, magnam partem eorum concidit. Reliquis sese fugae mandarunt atque in proximas silvas abdiderunt. Having aggressus, perfect active participle again here, aggressus. Here we've got having attacked, where we get obviously the word aggression from. Having attacked, eos, accusative, them, impeditos, where we get the word impeded from here. Encumbered, I suppose you could say encumbered with their luggage or their baggage. Luggage sounds like they're going on holiday. Having attacked them, encumbered with their baggage, et inopinantes, and literally unexpecting him. A present participle there. Look at that antes ending telling us that we've got a present participle. So having attacked them, impeditos, perfect passive participle, having been encumbered, and inopinantes, and not expecting him, concidit, he cut apart a large part, magnem partem, a large part eorum of their men. Reliqui, the remainder, mandarunt, literally entrusted themselves fugae to flight. The remainder decided to flee, obviously, but the remainder entrusted themselves to flight, atque, and abdiderunt, and hid themselves in the proximas, in the nearest silvas, in the nearest woods. Hoc proelio facto reliquas copias Helvetiorum ut consequi posset, pontem in arare faciendum curat, atque ita exercitum traducit. I like the fact that as we look at Caesar here, this is sort of fairly typical of him rushing through. Caesar is always this man of great pace. He's always moving very fast. When hoc proelio facto, let's look at that ending. Proelio, facto, perfect passive participle, ending with an O, so it's dative or ablative, and if it's dative or ablative, it's probably ablative, and it's therefore going to be an ablative absolute. So it is with this fight having been finished. We don't want to translate that anymore as with something having been something. That's not very good. So we would just say, when this fight was over, when this fight was finished, in order posset, in order that he might be able to follow the reliquas copias, the remaining copias, troops of the Helvetiorum, of the Helveti. So ut, purpose clause, followed by the subjunctive posset, in order that he might be able, consequi, to follow. That is obviously a deponent verb, so it looks passive but is in fact active. In order that he might be able to follow the remaining troops of the Helveti, he curat, here, he took care that a pontem, that a bridge should faciendum, that he took care that the bridge be built. Faciendum agreeing with the pontem. Now, because it's agreeing with the pontem, we know that makes it a gerandiv. A gerandiv of obligation, actually, because he took care that the bridge should be built in the, or over the Saone. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that right, I'm doing my best. He took care that the bridge be built over the Saone, and he traducit, and he led his exercitum, his army, across Ita in this way. Curat, this would be probably the most difficult sentence in the whole piece, because it contains a gerundive. He took care that the bridge be built. Remember that gerundivs are passive. He took care that the bridge be built over the Saone, and he led his army across in this way. Helveti, repentino eos advento commoti legatos ad eum mittunt, quios legationis divico princeps fuit, qui bello Cassiano dux Helvetiorum fuerat. The Helveti, commoti, surprised by eos advento repentino, surprised by his sudden arrival, mittunt, sent ambassadors to him. Commoti, perfect passive participle here. It does obviously look really just like an adjective, but here we could say that theoretically it's a perfect passive participle. So here you've got the Helveti, surprised by eos, by his repentino, by his sudden arrival, sent ambassadors to him. Divico fuit was the princeps, was the leader of this embassy. I've said for legatio. Divico was the leader of this embassy. Of which embassy? But of this embassy. Qui, who, fuerat, pluperfect, who had been the dux, the leader of the Helveti, in the war with Cassius, in the bello Cassiano. Is ita cum Caesar egit, si pacem populus Romanus cum Helvetis faceret, in eam partem ituros, atque ibi futuros Helvetios, ubi eos Caesar constituisset, atque esse voluisset. He dealt with cum Caesare, it should be obviously, sorry. He dealt with Caesar ita in this way. See, if the populus Romanus, as soon as I see this, I'm thinking, see, this is going to be a conditional. If the Roman people, faceret, made peace with the Helveti, that the Helveti would, ituros, would go into that area and would stay there, futuros, literally, this is all part of now an indirect statement. And because we have got an indirect statement, then your subordinate clause within the indirect statement is going to be its verbs in the subjunctive. And this is what I talked about a little while ago, the oratio obliqua. You don't need to know everything about it, but you need to be able to recognize that is why that is in the subjunctive, because it is a subordinate clause within an indirect speech, within an indirect statement in this case. So, I'm going to start all this off again. That was long and complicated. He dealt with Caesar in this way. If the Roman people made peace with the Helvetii, that the Helvetios, that the Helvetii, it's going to be accusative infinitive here, that the Helvetii, let's make them our subject even though they're accusative, that the Helvetii would, ituros, would go, future participle there, the Helvetii were going to go, and were futuros, literally were going to be in, but I've said we're going to stay in, that part, and we're going to stay there, ubi, where Caesar constituisset, where Caesar had wanted them, voluisset had wanted them and decided, where Caesar had decided and wanted eos them to be. Sin bello perseque persevaret reminisceretur et veteris incommodi populi Romani et Pristinae virtutis Helvetiorum. Last bit. Sin. If however, he persevaret, he continued persequi, to pursue war, this is still part of our conditional, if you remember. He should remember, reminiscor, deponent verb, so it is going to be the imperfect, looks like imperfect, subjunctive, passive, but it is imperfect, subjunctive, active. He should remember et, both the veteris, the ancient incommodi, I would have said disgrace, but I think that our book says defeat, that he should remember both the ancient defeat of the Roman people and the Pristinae and the former courage of the Helvetii. Nice little threat there, taking the format of this conditional clause. Okay, hope that you're all well, and I'll see you all soon.